All right, storytelling round. Hey, storytellers, we're talking to Rob here about players in Dungeons and Dragons or role playing games and how difficult it is. Light conversation. Actually, no. This is an intervention for the worst player I've ever had.
I've been ambushed. This is a trap this whole time.
Live intervention.
1 million viewers.
No. No, you're a great player.
Thank you.
I love your voices and your comments and
Thank you.
when you do stuff. Yeah, I will have one criticism of you though, and
I'll take it.
I'm gonna just go with this. And it's not even you. It's what I'm just maybe I'm evolving as a
Yeah.
GM, and I've noticed it. And you do it, and some other players do it, but it's not whatever. It's the whole like points. I'll figure out the best math and the best strategies. Like I want players to go away from that and just think of
Sure.
like what I want to play, what I want to do, and
Yeah.
how do I want to play that character, and not worry about the numbers, and we just have
Sure.
fun that way. Because when
Sure.
when you guys get the right numbers and the more powerful numbers, I just have to adjust all the stuff
Of
accordingly.
course.
And you know that too because you DM.
Of
So
course.
I'd rather just be about, and I'm learning this myself as I've been
Yeah.
doing all the stuff I've been doing, is trying to get the players to just do story and what do you
I know
feel,
I'm trying that too.
yeah.
So it's funny for me because I feel like a lot of time as a DM you see the worst parts of who you are as a player in your players. So yeah, I get that. I feel that's a fair criticism, but
And it's not even of you. It's just an evolution of what I've been coming
of
to.
course,
Yeah.
I see it all the time as well.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. So what I try to do just on that point with my players to kind of bleed that out of them is I just say I like make your most hardcore characters you can because it won't matter in the end. And then I just throw the whole kitchen sink at them.
Yeah.
I'll tell a tiny story. So I had a player that was the most like power gamey player I've ever seen. I know this too because I'm on like a power gaming Facebook group that I never really use. And then, but if like a friend of yours uses a group, you get a notification. And it came up, and he was like, "Hey, I'm in this campaign. What is the most overpowered build I can do on this Strahd campaign?" And then he did it, and it was like super overpowered. So essentially, he was like a flying race. He was a blade singer, and he was like a rogue, and it was like all these things. So his AC.
So you're
was
allowing
like,
multi-class.
yeah, so his AC was like already in the 20s, and then he would do blur and multiple mirror image, sorry. So not only was there 4 of them, not only was he flying, even if you did hit him, it was like disadvantaged to hit. So if you did hit him, there's 4 images. So even then it's a chance to even hit one of those. And even if you did that, the AC was so high. So it was like you could never touch him, which was fine because I was like, I don't really care because the campaign
Just use
is hard enough.
fireball.
Like, yeah, you're just gonna also watch your fellow teammates die. But I did throw a rock rub at him. I don't know if you've ever used a rock rub on a player.
Not since I was 12 or 13, back in the day when they were a
great.
monster listing back then.
They still are. So you get Swarm of Rock Rubs. It's a CR.
Oh, they are
CR
listing now?
half.
Because I
Yeah.
just, all I recall is them being the Dungeon Masters guide
I
or
think they
something.
brought them back with one of the recent Ravenloft expansions. But so
I just don't remember. But yeah,
Swarm
okay.
of Rock Rubs,
Uh-huh.
if the Rock Rub gets in the player, it burrows its way to the heart, and the only way to get it out is to cast like Cure Disease, which they didn't have.
Right.
So, we had this like level 8 power gaming, untouchable rogue that got, the blade singing rogue that got down by a little tiny maggot, just one.
But you had to scour the tomes to find the.
He was so mad. But yeah, I think it's for me. It's like I try to, if I can, it's like let them express that to the 10th degree because in the end it won't matter. I'll end up.
Well, it matters in the sense of they're going to miss out on something. I mean, I'm guessing you're trying to teach them a lesson, or learning a lesson yourself.
Bleed it out of them, basically.
Yeah, and that's some people it takes that, but
some I don't think he ever did really like that get over that because I think he left like a few weeks later.
Yeah,
he was so mad. And then it's like you can't force people to grow up sometimes too, right?
Yeah, so what I'm doing is it
Mm-hmm.
the Christian role playing thing. So I
Yep.
kind of have a different now cast of people that I'm recruiting for it.
Sure.
They're Christian, and then most of them don't role play, so they don't have any. So I'm kind of in a
Okay.
weird spot now where I'm actually getting really good players because they don't come with any preconceived notions or anything.
Sure.
They're just open to whatever and
Sure.
enjoying the time, enjoying it.
Well,
And
that's kind of nice. You're starting them off on a good foot too. I think it's good to start off with a role play foot rather than I know
yeah,
everything in the game.
yeah, because I
Because I
tell
feel
them
like,
don't worry about the rules.
yeah,
Tell me what you want to do, how
yeah,
you act, and know your gear and
yeah,
know sort of your MO, but don't worry about what you need, what trait you need, what skill. Just tell me what you do and then I'll tell you
yes.
what to roll. And that's how they're doing it and it's great. It's been like kind of such a relief.
That's a good
Um,
thing. I remember you said that to one of the first sessions, and I say that with a lot of my new players because they'll say, "Well, I'll get someone who's never played," and they'll say, "Well, I've never played. I don't know what the rules are." It's like it's okay. Just tell me what you want to do, and
yeah,
I'll
just
tell
say
you
what
what
you
to
want to
roll.
do or describe
Yeah,
it. And
yeah,
and it works out totally fine.
yeah.
Um, and I'm yeah, so that's where I'm at with what I'm doing. But just when you brought up you have players that just kind of throw these crazy classes at you and then you say no and they just disappear.
Oh yeah, but it's not even the thing too. Is it's like even in the official content, it's not even that. They're just making things up. Like I had a player that day was like, "Can I play as a mouse?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a mouse is a CR0 monster. You can definitely play as a mouse." And he goes, "No, I mean like a mouse, but he can hold a sword and a shield." And I'm like, but like we're doing Icewind Dale right now, and I'm doing it as survival horror, and I'm like, okay, but like what do you want this mouse? Like, why do you want to play a mouse in survival horror? And he's like, well, I thought it'd be really cute. And I'm like, okay, but it's a really brutal. Like, you're
Cute.
gonna get eaten. You're either gonna get eaten
You mean the
by
size of a mouse or like a humanoid?
no, just a regular mouse, but can hold a sword and a shield. And I'm like, you're gonna get eaten by like a cat or a wolf or just another player is gonna eat you. And he's like, oh, okay. But the one 2 weeks ago was a woman wanted to play as a family, and she's like, I'm like, so it's 3 characters? She's like, yeah, but it's statted as one. And
Wow.
it's just like and this is survival horror, and this was for the Curse of Strahd campaign, and I told her like, hey, so this Curse of Strahd campaign, it's really brutal. Like there's maiming and disfigurement and like it's really horrible. And like she had drawn pictures of the family, and it was very Disney esque. It was like a furry wolf father and like a cow mother, or maybe reverse that, and then like a hybrid kid, and it was very Disney. It was like I don't want to do this to your Disney family. They're gonna get eaten alive. Strahd is gonna kill them. I'm sorry. I don't think you can handle that. I'm like, can you just make like a regular character? Right? Here's all the races. You have 100 races to choose from. You have the 12 classes or whatever to choose from, and she got really angry and rage quit. That's another thing I've
Really?
noticed too is that the second that you give him any resistance, they're like, I'm gone.
Huh, well,
It's
oh.
very interesting. And so for the Rime of the Frostman campaign,
The-
I'm running 2 groups of 4, but it's the same campaign. So the idea is that each group is starting from either side of the map, and then for the ending, they'll kind of meet up. But I had to go through 40, about I think it was 44 players to get past 8.
what is? Dude, you are gone way deep.
And I would do like interviews like me and you're doing right now. But it was so funny, like they like just the most flakiest things you can imagine. Like, hey, we're playing Thursday at this time or Tuesday at this time. And they were like, yeah, got it. And then Tuesday would come around and they're like, wait, is PST Pacific? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, oh no. And you're like, how do you not understand time zones?
Where do you get them off? Like Reddit,
Yeah, no, I
LFG,
get
or
them off. There's like a bunch of Facebook. I use a bunch of Facebook groups, and then I use a bunch of. I use a because I play it on Tailspire, and there's Tailspire recruiting boards.
oh, so you play everything on
So
Telspire now?
yeah, so I get like some of the players through Tailspire, which is really cool because in my Tuesday game, all the players have Tailspire, so they move all their little tokens in the game.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, but the 2 groups of 4 I have, like they're really solid. Like it did. I had to go through so many players to get those, but like they're really good. But I think it just goes to show you like how many flaky players there are, and not to like attack anybody, but I notice the ones who tend to be a little more flaky are much younger,
Yeah, well,
like early 20s kind of thing.
yeah.
I think they're really excited. I think they're really like expressive kids. But I think when if you give them any sort of resistance or challenge, they're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You
Sounds like
know?
the generation, I guess.
Right. I think it's a generational thing. I think it's just like a societal generational thing, right? And probably the best players I have are the most reliable and best players I have, period, are 50 plus.
Yeah, that's kind of like in our DNA. It feels like that the 50-year-old plus holders,
Yeah.
we would show up all the time to these games, or
Right.
would have all these hours of playing. And
And
these
well,
are
culturally,
50-year-olds
right?
that have played it for many years, right?
Well, two, well, that's the interesting thing. So one never. So
Okay.
she's like, I think she's even older than she's like 60. And then another guy who's 60, he was showing he played it since first edition.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like they're like my rain or shine, they're there every time, right? And
It's and it's online. It's not Zoom, right? You just do
no, we do all Discord. We don't do faces, which I kind of miss, but it's fine.
because you
I
and
wouldn't be able to handle it anyway because it's all I'm always in Tailspire, so I can't
right,
even, you know.
right. Yeah, I don't know. I just need to see faces. I don't know. It's kind of
I think there's a definite pro to it. I think also like you get way more role play when you can see someone's face and their reaction
right,
to your role play. Like
right.
it's way more involved. It's way more engaged, right?
Yeah, and it's just there's 1,000 words happening on
That
your
too.
expression.
Yeah, that too.
when you're seeing each other. Yeah, like when I watch some actual plays, if they don't have the actual video of the people, I don't want to watch. I don't want to
Yeah,
see the
same.
little light up icons or nothing.
Exactly. I like seeing, and I think it's one really good thing. I think you made a really good choice when you did your Zoom with everybody's faces because it does change it a lot. I think everyone's a lot more present too because if you're not there, like you can tell, there's just like an empty screen. Whereas on Discord, I might be like, "Oh, and how do you react to that?" And the person is just like blank silence.
For a while
And
until you, hey,
they're
hey.
like, "Oh, I went to the bathroom." It's like, okay, you have to tell me because otherwise I don't know.
Yeah. You said this whole thing, describe
Yeah.
this whole thing.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, a character, a boulder dropped on your head. Like, what do you do? And they're like, they don't answer. Like, okay, well, I guess it just kills you.
No response.
No response. I guess you're dead.
Uh, I just, I didn't like. I'm definitely not going through as many finding players as you are.
Mhm.
But I did have one guy, and he came to the house before the lockdowns,
Yeah.
and and it was for the Storm King's Thunder one,
Yeah.
and he just was like, which I was like, I didn't really know much about the background stuff. Like
Mhm.
I was kind of old school, and we didn't really do this much background back in the day. And I
Mhm.
was sort of getting this experience, and this guy's like, I was a demigod, and then I decided to come down and be. And I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot of But I just wanted to
That
come
I
down and be
noticed
a.
that too. I noticed that too. The backstory where it's like, I was a master assassin. And then I killed a dragon, and then you're like, you're level one, you're nobody.
I'm starting over. I decided to start
Yeah,
over.
yeah, yeah.
Or
I'm
come
like, you
down
have
to your
delusions of
level. I'm coming down
grandeur.
to your level.
You have delusions of grandeur. Well, that's a funny thing too, is that like I do see that too, where there's kind of a mix where they're like, their backstory is like, yeah, I'm an orphan, and then the other backstory is like, here's this novel I wrote, and here's every character in my life. So now what I say with players is like, I'm looking for about 3 paragraphs max, right? And I'll say, I just need to know, why you're in the campaign, what's your history, why are you the class, you're the class, why are you ranger or whatever. And then I just need to know 3 people from your life. It can be like a mom, a dad, and a friend, something like that. And then it just kind of, if they start thinking about that, they might say, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, they do exist. Because otherwise, like, you get too many of like, oh, I have 6 characters in this game, 6 of my players, and 5 of them are orphans with no backgrounds. You know what I mean? You're like, I get medieval times are tough, but everyone can't be an orphan.
Medieval times are tough. There's a whole generation wiped out. before you
Yeah,
guys.
I get it. But you have friends. Like, no, I don't have any friends. Okay.
We don't have social
Like your
media,
character
so
has to exist. They have couldn't just pop into existence in the campaign. They have to have been born and grown up and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, you guys for the Storm King's Thunder, you guys had pretty simple backgrounds, and that was nice. And I could just focus on one or two things for that. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think I that was my first. So I think my character started out so simple. I think it was just I like to burn things. And then it kind of evolved
Yeah.
as
So
I kind of began to understand the game. But in the beginning, yeah, you're of course you don't know what. You're like, I don't know. I don't even know what my class is.
simple is better.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, simple's always better,
yeah.
right? And then
Because then you
I
can
think it's better for the DM too, because if someone's like, because I like to try to, like a lot of DMs
incorporate.
try to integrate
Yeah.
incorporate the background of the story.
Or
So it's like if I got to read through 13 pages, it's like I might not even then. Just I want to. What are the main where's your character from? Who's some people from their life? What's their deal? You know, and it's like okay,
yeah, and it'd be nice to allow the DM and the player to go ahead and flesh it out as you're role playing, rather than
oh yeah,
it's a text that you have to read. I don't mind that if the player has a background but he doesn't tell us, and then as the story
yeah,
progresses, he starts to say stuff to people about his life, in a little monologue.
sure,
Not too long, brevity, please, but
of course.
that would be way more better than I think than just here's my page, here's my
Here's my
document.
novel. Well, then it's kind of tricky because it's like, well, they've already worked out the whole story and the ending. Then
Well,
you know what I
I
mean?
hope
Like they
not.
don't
I
because it's
hope.
like, well, where's the character going to grow if you've already got this much
Oh
about them?
yeah, if you created
You know
this
what I
whole,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, well, it's kind of a completed, like it's over now, right? Because you're like, well, this story has all the arcs in it, right? And I
Right.
think it's like the fresh characters, like, well, it's just the prologue, and then they hand you a novel, and it's like, well, no, this is now Lord of the Rings. You've written Lord of the Rings. The
Uh,
journey's over.
I'm glad I don't have that anymore. At least what I'm doing now. Uh, so yeah, you're just wow 40. You went through 40ish to get.
And it was the funniest stuff. So basic so for the Icewind Dale one, I kind of have to be strict, right? Because there are certain things in many of the classes now that negate not just lesson but negate any of the survival challenges, right? Like
Like
you have
druid
characters that like
or ranger.
yeah, and so I said with the druid was like yeah, and with the ranger it's like I can never be lost, and when with the druid it was like I have unlimited food,
I
and it
didn't
was
let
like guys
in my campaign
I
then I
can't.
didn't let him be a ranger or a druid.
No,
I
well I
think
did
no
that.
one.
I did
No, none was a druid.
I let them be a ranger, and then there's characters like, well, I want to be a Goliath, and you have five characters want to be Goliath all of a sudden, five, and because they want the cold resistance. So I said, okay, but in this game, your frost check could go up to 30 or 40 DC 40, and frost resistance is only a +5 bonus. So then they kind of realize once they realize it's not negating the chat, then they all, well, I don't want to be a Goliath anymore. And then yeah, like you take out good berry, or you say good berry, it costs materials, right, on consumption. And
Wait,
I
say
think when
again.
you like instead of good berry just being an unlimited
Oh,
cast,
good berry. Yeah.
like an unlimited cast, only casting spell slots, you say, well, it's going to cost you this sprig every time.
Oh, and you gotta get the
So that
sprig.
way it's not, yeah, and that way it's like not negate, like you can lessen challenge, but and I try to explain this to the players, like once you negate the challenge is the whole point, right? So if you take the challenge away,
Makes
you haven't accomplished anything. You've just removed a massive part of the game, and then the whole thing is like
part of
if
story.
you're if you're removing massive parts of the game, why are you playing?
Yeah.
Then you're not playing, right? You're just taking away parts of the game. And like a couple players quit just from that, even though I'd kind of explained it to them before we started. And it's just funny that too is that like even if you explain to somebody, hey, there's no flying races, there's no druids or whatever, right? Whatever you're, and they'll say, yeah, that's fine. And then they'll start the campaign and be like, well, actually, I demand to be this druid. And it's like, well, no, we kind of agreed that, right? And they don't want to go back on it.
How come you're still DMing with all this?
With what?
With all you're
Oh, I
going
still
through?
because I think when you go through all those shitty players, you get players that are just gold.
Yeah.
And so the players that I play with in my straw game, especially, like I've been playing with them for about 2 years because I first met them for a Rime of the Frost Maiden game. I joined this game, and all his players were all flakes, and I was like, these guys are flakes. You got to get rid of them, and he did, except for one. And then I had him.
How
I
did he get rid of
recruited.
them?
Well, first off, a bunch of them just weren't showing up.
Or they
So I
show
was
up
like,
once in a
yeah,
while?
yeah, that kind of thing. So I was like, just get new players, and then we'll just say the slots are full, right? Fill. And then I recruited for him new players, and then they were all really good. Like none of them were flakes. They're all really good. And we all ended up playing to the end of the campaign. And then he was like, I'm kind of burnt out. I'm gonna take a break. And then I took those players and I started the Curse of Strahd campaign. And then one guy had a baby, and then he kind of went through like a messy breakup. Another guy got sent off to the military, and then had the power gamer character that he was just struggling with being a mortal character. And then so I started recruiting for that Strahd campaign, and even in that I ran through like so many flaky characters. Like it's really weird because what I try to do in the post is say, hey, this is a heavy combat, heavy RP campaign, and I do an interview and I say, hey, have you done role play before? And they said, yeah, I love it. I love it. I do it all the time. And then you go to play with them, and you like say to the character like, the dragon says like, how dare you enter my lair? I shall rip you bone limb from limb. What do you say, this dragon? They're like, I say no. And then it turns out that they've never role played and they're just lying to you. So there's lots of that too, and it's just really weird out there. I'm not sure why it's so prevalent. If it's a big thing in the D&D community to be flaky and weird, or if it's just a young generation thing. But
It's a weird commitment too, like
that
to
I
week
think
and
people lack that too.
to do
Like
something like this.
yeah, people lack commitment.
And
I think too.
I feel like too, you get we back in the day when we played D&D, we were kids when we started this. It wasn't adults playing it was kids.
Mm.
And it wasn't a teen thing at all either. I mean,
Oh
you
wow,
had to
yeah.
start when you were in middle school or even
Sure.
elementary, and then you got it in your DNA,
Yeah.
in the 80s, and then
Sure.
you carried it on. Whereas we didn't really know people that were teens who started or that were in college who started. They all knew it from when they were a kid, and so it was in their DNA. Whereas today, it seems like the vast majority are people in their 20s and 30s who are, because of social media, who are, oh, check out this cool thing, and so
Yeah,
they're
like they
checking
see
it out.
Stranger Things or they see Critical Role,
Yeah,
and then they're like, I
and
think that's a
YouTube.
big thing too. People are like, they get an idea about D&D, or they like the idea of it, or like the idea of a campaign,
Or that,
but then
there's
when it
a
really comes into like, yeah, can
fellowshipy
you
thing.
show up every week? And they're like, oh, actually, I can only show up like
when
once
I
every
when
two
I feel
months.
like it.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, and then it's like, okay, well, we can't do a story if we can't do a story if you're never here, right?
yeah. I don't know. Was it you or someone made a really good point? Oh no, it was in the campaign
What would
where,
they say?
like, just the once a week is really important. If it's every other week, every 2 weeks, inevitably someone's gonna miss, and that's 4 weeks.
Yes.
So if it's every two
Oh,
weeks,
totally.
it really kills the momentum.
I believe that too. I was in a game with Sam every 2 weeks that he was DMing, and I found that really hard because
It's a long time.
okay, like having a game every week, you can kind of keep your mind fresh with what's happening.
Yeah.
But every 2 weeks, I really, every time we started, I was like, where are we?
I
Like I have
forgot.
no idea where are we? What's
And
happening?
then one of those you all are gonna miss, or you're gonna miss, and it's gonna be a
Yeah, and then
month.
we were playing with a group of three, so the second one guy was gone, it was like, oh, we're see you next month, everybody. And so it was constant, like it took us so long. I had to end up having to drop out of it, but like it, even to get to the smallest milestones in that campaign, took such a massive amount of time,
Yeah.
because it was like, yeah, it was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
just, and
you
there's
need it
just so
weekly,
many
but
gaps.
weekly is tough for people that don't have it in them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even bi-weekly, like at best, at your best attendance is every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And that's never happening. So really,
Yeah.
you're playing once a month,
Yeah.
if that.
So yeah, weekly. But again, everyone's schedule changes every week.
Yeah.
Just things to do, distractions. Like every Thursday we play, but Thursday's a good night to go out. Thursday's a good night to people want to hang out, or whatever.
Yeah, but imagine if it was Friday or Saturday. Like you'd
Yeah,
never
no, there's
get
no
it.
way.
You'd never get a game going
But I'm just saying,
on.
things like so it's hard to do once a week, but then you still have to, or
Yeah.
otherwise it's not really going to work.
Yeah, Thursday's a good time. I mean, I think that's a really good D&D time. My Strahd one I really like. It's like Saturday afternoon,
That's the
and I
worst. You
feel
got to
like
take your kid out, man.
no. Well, for them it's Saturday afternoon for me, but they're all East Coast, so it's like Saturday night. I think.
Don't they got parties to go to on Saturday night?
I think because they're all old.
That's their party.
If they're old, and it's Abigail who's old sold. So
Yeah. Shit. I'm trying to think what else. So my Tuesday Rhyme of the Frost main has died because I have to make a
It's a
video on
bummer.
that. Yeah, it was weird. Just so many different reasons. And it was 3 months, and then one guy just got, I can't do this. 3 months, I'm out. And then the others are like, oh, so. And I was pretty much there every one. I showed up on every one.
Mhm.
I literally a couple times was there and no one showed up. But it was weird. They're all good natured souls, so it wasn't like
Yeah,
anything.
I've watched a
Yeah.
bunch of those on
Yeah. So it wasn't
YouTube,
anything.
and it was they had good charisma, they had good interactions.
Yeah. But
You know, they played together well.
it's just, I think it's after 60 plus episodes, maybe it was just a bit long and winded and stuff. I don't know.
Could be. If you've consigned to letting it die, that's fine. But if you want to try to, I could help you try to revive it. I can find some players for you. I can see if some of my Strahd, my Strahd
That's fine.
hardcores.
It's funny they're in the final Lost City. That's the doing.
No,
It's all epic-y but
they
then
are at the end.
I know it's so funny.
Spoiler, but have they downed Oral or?
No, I kind of I changed it up a little there where
Okay.
they actually met her three forms
wow.
in sorry the two first
Like
forms
each form separately or
separately. So they defeated the first form twice, and then
Okay.
they defeated the second form. I put her in the prison. She took that over with the dragon
Yeah.
as her lair.
Oh,
And
cool.
I put the layer there. I didn't like the whole island thing.
Oh yeah,
um,
sure.
It was just kind of weird to me.
It feels,
but whatever.
It feels far off.
Yeah, and cartoony in a sense.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I thought
this is
that
my
too.
taste.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
and-
that too when we had done it.
Yeah, and then and then I was gonna have her final form show up in the city, and I changed the city to just all this cool, high level, crazy grinding
Sure.
stuff, just for the
we
fun
never
of it.
even did the Netherland city because we beat her on the island,
Uh-huh.
and then we did some other stuff, and then the DM was like, "Yeah, it's kind of over now."
You know what? I feel like when they defeated her those couple of times, and I feel like they felt like they were finished. And then when I brought up the whole Nethering thing through the wizard
Yeah.
stories, I think that really that whole change was also not. I think it was kind of lost the wind from that,
yeah,
because it's a totally different thing altogether, and
it is, and I think if you don't,
I didn't make it
tease
very
that-
compelling either.
yeah, if you don't tease that build up to it, it
Yeah.
does feel like it's really tacked on
Yeah.
because like Oral's the whole thing, and so when you defeat her,
Yeah.
and then the DM's like, by the way,
Yeah. I did tack it on. I did from early on. They did get some
Yeah.
clues about him, but it just felt like a side quest,
It
to them,
does.
and it is really because it's
I
not.
think that's what my DM felt too, and so we just kind of ended there.
Yeah, yeah. I think that might have had something to do with it as well.
Well, all of
Um,
our character arcs kind of ended around the Oral thing too,
Right.
so it kind of felt like the characters felt
And
done too.
Yeah,
So it was like I think the characters were kind of like, well, I'm gonna go home now. Why would I stay?
yeah.
Like I did the thing. I beat the boss. I've saved.
Oh yeah, but
Icewind
there's this whole
Dale.
cool another freaking deaky
Yeah.
thing. That
And
that
then
really
the
could have been
character's
its own
like, but I-
campaign for sure.
For sure, but the character's like, well, I have no reason. I have no interest.
I
go
know.
with it."
I don't even know why they tacked that in there because
It's an odd choice.
Yeah,
I think they've
It's
been
kinda
making
weird.
odd choices recently.
yeah.
Like I've been hearing a lot of criticisms about the recent campaigns that have been coming out. Spelljammer, from everyone
Well,
saying,
the-
is a pretty big stinker.
Strixhaven. What's the other one?
That too.
Like a-
Radiance Citadel. I didn't hear
Yeah,
good things
I didn't.
about.
I didn't. No interest.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it feels kind of like lazily written.
and Harry Pottery and just
That
throwing.
yeah, I heard that too. A lot of people said like it doesn't feel like D&D. Well, me and my wife, me and Gabby were at the game store, and she was like, "Hey," and she held up the Radiant Citadel one, and she's like, it was on sale. It was like 90% off, and she's like,
90%.
"Hey," oh, it was like a lot. I don't know 90, but it was like
But
60 or
yeah.
70. It was like, yeah, and she's like, "Hey, there's this like D&D book," and then I first saw it, I was like, "Oh no, that's not D&D. I don't know what that is." And then she opened it up. She's like, "No, look!" And it was like Wizards of the Coast. I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought it was like a coloring book.
That's
It's like,
so.
okay, I guess it is. I don't know. I think some campaigns are just so great that maybe they overshadow, like Rime of the Frost Maiden, Storm King's Thunder, or Curse of Strahd. Like, there's just these giant, amazing campaigns out there. And then I think sometimes it just, oh, it's a one off. Let's sell it,
Well,
you know?
I feel like they're just, I don't know, they're turning into, I don't know what it is, but the old ways is just like a good versus evil, straight,
Yeah.
it's a linear, straightforward, fight the
Yeah.
bad guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Treasure, and that's kind of what I think was always the appeal of it, just having this fun
Yes.
adventure. Whereas now they're trying to turn it into like a role playing thing, not even a role
Mhm.
playing game, a role playing thing. They just
Yeah. Well, it gets really out there, and you're like, okay, well, who's this? Who's this book for? And I think some of the books are like written for D&D players they've played every campaign, right? So it's like, where are you going to go next? And I just think the average D&D player or newer player probably isn't going to be attracted to like Radiant Citadel or some of those other ones.
well, and another one. The funny thing is, I'm impressed that you've been able to accomplish all this, like with DMing. It's like if a new player, I could not recommend any of the campaigns to them because they're all so
Yeah.
convoluted and overly
Oh
written
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
confusing, and you still have
Or
so much work to do to get them to work.
or imagine recommending them to a new DM.
I know.
Like if
That's
you
what I'm
look at
saying.
like Rime of the Frost Maiden, I'm going through it. I'm like, wow, like that's like being able to remember 10 towns in your head, even for a seasons DM, is like you're like there is a lot here.
and why would they want
And
to, go to each one? You have to figure that
yeah,
out.
and if your players are like, hey, I'm going to the next one, it's only an hour away, you're like, oh crap, I don't even they sell fish there. I don't know what.
Yeah, why would I know? I found all the campaigns to be, I made. That's how I started making videos, like on the Prince of the Apocalypse and
Yeah.
Princess of the Apocalypse or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
How was that one? I don't think I
it's
haven't dived too much into that one.
yeah, it's a very, I made a video to fix it basically because
Oh, okay.
there were so many complaints about that one and even Storm King's Thunder,
Mm-hmm.
and I just was trying to streamline them and simplify and like
Yeah.
the simplest thing is, there was no motivation to do any of the stories. They're very convoluted. So I was like,
Yeah.
I was
I heard
like, the
that too.
simplest motivation is just have people suffer. And then you
Mm-hmm.
want to rescue. They don't even bring that up.
Yeah.
They don't bring up anything about people suffering in these
Yeah.
campaigns. They try to throw in all these different, like, they could do this or they can do that or they can do that. And it was like, it's like I get to pick my little journeys as opposed to
Yeah.
I got to save these people.
I read that about Storm King's Thunder, and after we had finished that campaign, I thought about running that instead of Strahd. But I remember reading like a DM's guide to it, and it was interesting because a lot of the things they were like, a lot of the big cons and like here's the big problem with the campaign were things I noticed you had fixed, but that was the big thing. They're like, there's no reason to go here, right? There's
Right.
no reason to go here.
Right.
So why is it in the campaign? But I remember when we had played Storm King's Thunder, you had made it more that like the story unfolded that way, and there was reasons to go there.
Yeah.
There was plot devices, and I thought it was like, I mean, kudos to you, but I thought it was just funny that yeah, like there was a big criticism about Storm King's Thunder being like it's kind of too open, and there isn't a lot of hooks.
They had so many side quests that were so ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like
I
here's
heard
a
that too.
here's 4 paragraphs on a green dragon in a forest
And it
poisoning
goes
everything.
nowhere.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
and you could go find. I mean, what? And there was so many of those.
yeah.
It was just there was
And
so much about
but
it that
you're
was
just like, but where does this go?
nowhere. It's just you go
Yeah,
do that and
yeah.
whatever.
Well, I'm glad that you had in the extra giants for us as well because it allows you to experience. I mean, the whole campaign's about giants,
Yeah,
and in the original campaign, they're like choose two.
I know.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
yeah, that's really weird.
And I was like, no, I'm having them go through every one of them and not none of this other stuff, you know?
Yeah, that was really cool because we got such a different taste and like okay. And I think if we hadn't done that, I would have always been wondering, well, what was the fire giants like? What were they
Right.
like?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I really wanted you to go to all of them. Not, you know, the Eye of the All Father, I thought was ridiculous. And if you, I don't know,
Oh yeah, I read about that part
yeah.
too. That didn't look appealing. I'm
Yeah.
glad you took that out.
Yeah. It was just like I don't even, you know, I don't remember anymore, but it was like, go into this big temple and pick the right thing. Or if you don't, you know, you're stuck in there and you got to get out, you know, just
Yeah.
roll, you know, DC 22 to get
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
something else happens. And then you pick 2 giants to go visit, not all. Oh no!
Yeah.
First, you got to go to all these barbarians and find these things, and then bring them back, and then pick 2. You know, it's just like
Oh, weird.
it's like because all these barbarian tribes everywhere. You're supposed to go and find things and then bring it back to the Eye of Elf.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, it was just so like, what? I want you guys
Yeah.
to like fear that things are happening and they're going to come after everybody, and you got to
It
go stop
definitely
each
felt
one.
like that when we had played it. It felt like you could feel that the shifting of the ordning was like pretty important and like a big part of the world, and not like a background thing.
Yeah, and they're trying to build up a whatever, you know, attacking everybody or whatever, fighting everybody, warring on everybody.
Campaign. I'm really happy that that was my first experience of D&D and not say I don't know like Strixhaven or something.
Something
I
goofy.
think I would have been like, eh.
I know. Yeah. No, you were a great player, so that was enjoyable. Yeah. It's
I
just
tried to bring up. Yeah, sorry.
that's funny. It's just all the little silly things you're doing with the fire. What's the guy's name again? I forgot.
Raziak.
Raziak. Fire dude. And you had your wife play. That was fun. You know.
That was great. I mean,
I guess I ruined it for her, but
it's really funny. She had a really good time. I was talking to her recently. I was like, oh, I was showing her some old videos and she's like laughing in the background. It's during, our Storm King games. And I was like, it was really fun. She's like, it was really fun. And I was like, you should play again.
Nah.
And then she's like, I'm really enjoying
real
life. And she's like, I think I had enough of pretend life.
This is my wife. Same thing. Just not in her DNA to.
Yeah,
but she's a really good player too. Yeah, my wife's.
I know,
really,
that's what killed me.
Yeah.
And I try to tell her, I'm like, you're better than most of my players now.
Yeah, she'll come up the wife will come up with all the let's do this and well that definitely will work, or whatever. But she's like, I can do without it.
For sure. Well, I thought the funniest thing with her character was like, cause she was like, hey, I want to play. And I was like, okay. I'm like, what do you want to make for your character? And she's like, well, I don't know. She's like, you make it for me. So then I made her like the silliest idea was like a gnome barbarian. And then, but like by the end, it was the strongest character. Yeah, it was terrifying. I think the 1 or 2 times when you mind controlled her, I was just petrified of fear.
Oh, that's right. There was a bit of that where she was attacking you guys.
Her against the party and was like, please, God, no, please.
It was so good that she was fulfilled and didn't need another 20 years of it.
Exactly. But yeah, going back to the original thing, I think like there's been this huge resurgence of D&D
and role-playing games, right?
Yeah, and role-playing.
But you're focused on D&D.
Yeah, my focus is on D&D. I think just for me personally, like really learning one system well as a DM.
You know what?
And then
I'm going to counter that and say no. Because I think you should, you know what?
Systems on your belt.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you already know the system. It's not, how much more do you need to delve into to be that good,
There's still a couple campaigns I want to run under this system.
Right. But I think you should expand or maybe just buy one for Christmas and check it out, like just some other what kind of all right, let's figure this out right now. What other genres do you like just settings?
Star Wars.
Oh, well, the Star Wars RPG. You should check that one out. It's kind of pricey, but
there's a homebrew 5e to Star Wars.
Do that one. That one's free.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's got a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty good too. How did your Star Wars campaign go?
I liked it. I really did. the thing I got really into like the little tokens and the little,
Sure.
and I if you want those I can give you, although I think you're going to use Telspire or whatever, right?
Probably.
Yeah, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I in the end though the dice pool
Mhm.
RPG system was not for me because
No.
it
What
sort
do
of
you mean dice
kills the
pool?
nat 20. There's no nat 20 kind of feel
What's
to
the
it.
what, so how does it work then?
So you like you get negative dice based on the difficulties, and then you get the positive
Uh,
dice of your skill, and then you throw them all down, and the
I
negative dice
see.
take away your skills until you to see what's
Okay.
left, you
Oh.
know. And then if there's a critical, but it's on a D12, so you get it kind of a lot.
Oh wow,
So
yeah.
it's sort of tampered down then the
Sounds
excitement.
like my gunslinger.
Yeah. and and it has like narrative things where it has one set of the dice are the skills, and the other set of dice of your
Uh-huh.
positives are
Yeah.
storytelling, like, oh, I get a good storytelling bit if I get this die.
Mm.
And the same with
Mm.
the negative dice. There's the skill
Mm.
one, and then there's the negative story, and you subtract them together,
Oh,
you know.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's at first it was fun because it was simple and you're low level, but as
Yeah.
they progressed and got up, and there's more dice,
Hmm.
got a little too, I felt weighted.
Was it like overly complicated as they got higher?
It wasn't
Like
a,
you're like every time you're rolling, you're like rolling
it
20
wasn't
dice,
it
or
didn't, I don't know, it just felt to me like everyone that had a lot of skills was always going to do what they wanted to do. And
mm.
um I don't know, it just didn't get, it just got, yeah, I just didn't like the dice. I didn't like the way
Okay.
they made it felt too consistently what you expected it would do,
Yeah.
the dice pulls. And granted that was the only session or campaign I've done with that game and those dice pools.
Yeah.
And by the end though, I think I learned it pretty well. And one of the guys on it was a veteran player
Oh
of it
wow.
that knew all the rules. But
So is it owned by LucasArts?
no, it's
No,
owned
but
by
it's a
Edge or something. I don't
but
know
it's
who.
like
It's a
official
license.
Star Wars
It is
content.
official, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I really fell in love with it though. I fell in love with the books and the artwork and the
Really?
ideal of it. But again,
And it's a pretty good system. Like you can be all the droids and everything.
yeah, and the dice pulls again, like I said, and the dice pulls in the beginning were kind of neat, and nifty, and
Mhm.
interesting, and
Yeah.
so I kind of liked it. But then again, once they got to like 10 dice and were or whatever and rolling
Hmm.
high stuff, it got a little less interesting for me. So
Oh, interesting.
and I remember the veteran guy saying when they got to about 500 points or whatever like they
Hmm.
were at,
Hmm. Yeah.
um, for the skill point purchases, the die purchases. He said they tended to end it then and then would move on to something else,
Oh,
and that's
really?
where we were at. So I'm kind
Uh,
of like thinking, oh, okay, that's probably the same experience. So
oh,
just so you know, like
yeah.
when you get to 10th level, it gets right in D&D, it gets the same. It's like it
Sure.
starts to get
Yeah.
too crazy. So in my system,
It gets nuts.
yeah, and so what I'm doing in mine is you just you get glory points and you can buy it to upgrade little things.
Okay.
And in mine the skills are anything you want. You
Oh.
just come up with a skill and you'll
Hmm.
get, and instead of getting +1, +2, +3, I don't do that
Hmm.
anymore. I do D4 is your first
Hmm.
one, D6,
Hmm.
D8, D10,
Oh, I
D12,
see. Yep.
and then twice the cost if you go over that. But so when you
Interesting.
roll, there's always a chance you're gonna roll a one.
Yeah.
It just gets less and less, but there's always
Sure.
a
Sure.
range now as opposed to always
Yeah.
being +2, +5, +7 or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I have that in mind. So that way I feel like, although we haven't had it yet, if someone plays a character for a year, I feel like
Hmm.
it's going to still feel like they could get beat by, low level things and they could still sort of
And
deal.
you kind of should too, right? Like
Yeah.
that is one funny thing I always think with D&D, where it's like, yeah, your character has been adventuring for 2 weeks and he has like 150 HP, so it's like you can walk into an alleyway and these thugs are stabbing him, and he's just laughing at
Yeah.
them, even though he's a wizard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in 2 months, you're literally like a superhero.
I remember we were playing Storm King's Thunder, and it was like we were at the last boss, and I said to you like, "How long is this? Like, how long in the in-world time has it been? Like, how many years?" And you're like, "About 3 weeks." My character had been through so much, like half his face had been melted off.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
He had died and come back to life. I'd assumed years had gone by. His family is wondering where he is.
Oh, the super armor and just
Yeah, just basically a god.
3 weeks.
Like if you're in that world and like sometimes you don't see a friend for months, so like a month could by and next time you see your friend, they're like this demigod of power. Like, oh, I went on an adventure.
couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh, go adventure. I killed a god.
Yeah. Yeah, I know those. Like when you go up a level, you just get so many things, you know.
You really do.
And it's like you get this and this and this. Oh yeah, you know. And
Yeah.
then you get a ton of hit points and stuff. So
Well, I think you get that sometimes as a player you get addicted to that.
yeah,
The idea of progressing.
yeah. So in mine,
You
yeah,
get
it's
kinda
just
stuck in
small.
that.
Yeah, and fun, small and fun. And I keep all the villains small. You know, I don't have to.
Mhm.
I don't have to throw a bunch of stuff at them anymore. I just throw
Sure.
just throw story at them. So
And do you always do mile or XP, or do you milestone as well?
in D&D,
Yeah.
I've never done milestone. Even
No.
back in the day, I've always done XP.
I've started doing it with the Rhyme campaign,
Milestone one.
and yeah, and I just because what I'm really trying to do with the Rhyme campaign, like my motto to myself is the greatest enemy in this campaign will be the cold. So I've really had the combat be super minimal, and most of it's just pretty role play around the cold.
Right.
And I just had them do that. So and just so in lieu of that, because there was going to be such few combat, I just made it all milestone.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier too. I think.
Yeah, I think as a player though, I've always preferred XP because when I've done milestone, like it just feels arbitrary. Like you know what I mean? And whereas the XP feels like no,
I
we
fought this. I
yeah,
fought that.
we
I
earned
fought
that. We killed that guy. Right? We
Yeah.
took that XP for ourselves.
Yeah, I didn't know how I literally was going to do it until we started doing it, and then we just. I mean, I've done it. That's how I did in the past, but when I started using 5e, I didn't know which way I was going to go, and then we just kind of did it, and I like, it seemed like everybody liked it, so.
Sure.
And
Sure.
um,
Let me ask you one last question, then I gotta go.
Okay.
My wife's dragging me off. So you started playing D&D when you were a kid. Who and what was your first character?
I don't remember.
No?
No, I don't remember. I actually have not my first character because I
Okay.
played it with these. I think I was in elementary and I played with some middle schoolers who were nice to me for a little bit,
Oh,
but then
nice.
I think I just started rubbing them the wrong way because I was so much
Sure.
younger than them.
Yeah.
And so my characters died or whatever. And I got upset. And I could tell they just, they didn't want to play with me anymore. But I still have good, whatever things about it.
I've seen that happen with adults.
Yeah. And
So
so then I went and, started playing with my sister and then my other friends, my
Sure.
age friends. And we started our own group. And that was kind of crazy up and down. And I actually still have those characters somewhere
Really?
in my garage right now, I had a fighter, magic user, cleric,
yeah.
and he's like a god.
Oh, wow. But
we
so
all did
your
that.
Your XP per level must have been so high to get like they're at level 5 and you're at
Shoot,
level
I don't
2.
even know if we did it the right way. We just. And the one thing I did have was blue
Worse.
arrows.
Okay.
Whenever they argued with me, I send a blue arrow. It was a magic missile, a blue arrow on them. Oh yeah, and I'll give you another one. I remember. Yeah, we used to have stupid arguments and stuff. But we still kept doing it. We played like 8 hours.
Oh yeah.
All that back in the day.
I did that with my family when the pandemic hit and we were all in the hometown together. And I introduced my brother and his sons to D&D. We would play like 10-hour sessions every day. I think we did a campaign in 2 weeks.
Oh my
A
gosh.
full campaign.
That I can't. I don't know how you can do that now. When I was a kid, I could do it.
Oh,
But
possible now. But
no, but I mean, even
in
your adult life.
pandemic was like no one has a job.
that's true. Yeah,
Everyone has to be inside.
yeah, that's true.
There was no baby back then. So.
All right, man. Good
All right,
talking.
nice chatting with you, Ron.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get the Tomb of Annihilation going. Or it'll cancel like my other 2 campaigns.
Tomb of cancellation.
All right, man.
The party didn't know the real annihilation was scheduling.
That's what killed him.
Yeah, it was not the Lich. It was the schedule.
Schedule.
All right,
All right,
Ron.
man.
Have a good one.
Good night.